Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And now the search for Nancy Guthrie heads into its 12th day. The 84-year-old mother of Savannah Guthrie. Heartbreaking. And that lead last night, which looked like it may have been the enormous break in the case, turned out to so far be a bust. But they did find, and according to Fox News Digital, they're reporting today that gloves have been found near the Nancy Guthrie home, that it is a pair of black gloves, very similar to what the attacker used. Still not confirmed because they're kind of generic gloves. They're the kind that doctors use and even forensic and FBI people use. So they were searching in that area. That's a very promising sign. So they probably were searching there because maybe they got some tip or some sort of cell phone information, or maybe somebody called up anonymously and said, hey, maybe you want to take a look in this area. But sure enough, they did find things there. And that is interesting and that is telling. So now, of course, they're testing it to see if there's any connection to this case. Meantime, also, Harvey Levin, of course, of TMZ. This is interesting. Remember, he got the first ransom note, and then those local media outlets also got the other ransom notes, which we still don't know if they're verified or not. But Harvey Levin also today got an email from somebody. Listen to this. This is a wild one. This is just shows how wild and how many twists happen in this case.
TMZ has just been sent a third letter. Please explain and describe what you got about 90 minutes ago.
So an hour and a half ago, we got kind of a bizarre letter, an email from somebody who says they know who the kidnapper is and that they have tried reaching Savannah's sister, Annie, and Savannah's brother to no avail. And they said they want 1 Bitcoin sent to a Bitcoin address that we have confirmed is active. It's a real Bitcoin address. As they put it, time is more than relevant. So we have no idea whether this is real or not, but they are making a demand. It's interesting that, Bitcoins fluctuate in value, but it's around $56,000 now, 1 Bitcoin, which is about the amount that the authorities are offering for information leading to the return of Nancy. So I don't know if that aligns, but whoever sent this, and they actually give a name and an email address, but whoever sent this is asking for around that amount.
Around that amount. Well, then why didn't you just call authorities? Some people say, and in fact, I was watching Harvey earlier today. He was saying sometimes people feel like, maybe the feds won't give them exact credit for the one who broke the case wide open. Maybe they'll say it was a combination of people. And by sending a message to the media, it sort of gives a letter of record, if you will, that he was the guy who reached out first, or she, who knows, or maybe it's all bogus like everything else. But why wouldn't you reach out to the feds when the reward is at $50,000 and the cost for a Bitcoin right now, 1 Bitcoin, it varies in price, and it's about $66,000. So it's not that much different. Obviously, $16,000 is a nice chunk of change, but it's not that much different than the $50,000 reward. But what's interesting is Harvey Levin said on that email he got, there was some information that turned out to be credible. Listen to this part.
I believe you were the one who said, whoever wrote that letter, I don't think you used the word meticulous, but I'll use that word, suggesting that the grammar was right. The letter was very specific about the requests and the demands. Does this letter have the same form that you saw the first time around?
No, and I don't think this person is purporting to be that person.
Okay.
This person is purporting to be someone who probably wrote that first letter. If the FBI's operating theory is right, that they are going on the assumption that the person who wrote this note took Nancy. And so they're not saying they're the kidnappers. They're saying they know who the kidnapper is and will give that information up for 1 Bitcoin.
Okay.
And again, we looked at this address. It's a pretty bold thing that the address is real.
So that's interesting. I sent an address, sent a person's name, address is real, says they have a tip. I mean, it's worth looking into. I think Harvey said that he passed it on to the FBI, which is obviously the right thing to do. And hopefully they're pursuing it. And who knows? Sometimes these weird, wacky things that come in, they could be totally bogus. They could be staged. They could be people sadly trying to profit or take advantage of somebody's misery. But sometimes they could be real, too. So it's certainly worth looking into. You definitely don't want to discount it. Meantime, speaking of discounting, shocking, as we've been talking about these Capitol Hill hearings, Pam Bondi on the hot seat today, and yesterday it was Todd Lyons. I wanted to play this clip because this is LaMonica MacGyver, and she is the one who tried to, it looks like, bum rush the Newark ICE facility. Remember, she and some other Democrats. And then when they were, I think, trying to get Ras Baraka, the mayor at the time, trying to maybe arrest him because he was going on property, then she kind of looks like she's pushing the agents. That's what it looks like to me in the video. Obviously, an investigation and case and all that stuff will bear it out. But she was arrested for obstruction and a couple other things. And yet that doesn't hold her back. She's still just on Crazy Town. Listen to what she said to the sitting acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, yesterday. While you thought Pam Bondi was bad, listen to what she said to Todd Lyons yesterday.
Let me ask you some questions that you may be able to answer. Mr. Lyons, do you consider yourself a religious man?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, how do you think Judgment Day will work for you with so much blood on your hands?
I'm not going to entertain that question.
Oh, okay, of course not. Do you think you're going to hell, Mr. Lyons?
I'm not going to entertain.
Of course not. How many government...
The gentlelady will suspend. The gentlelady will suspend.
Chairman?
A gentlelady will suspend. As I said, the issues we're debating here are important to ones that members feel deeply about.
Thank you.
While vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum in debate. The witnesses are here voluntarily, and I will continue to remind members that while oversight is important, aggressively attacking those witnesses personally is inappropriate and not in keeping with the traditions of our committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking a question. You guys are always talking about religion here in the Bible. I mean, it's okay for me to ask a question, right?
That is really just so inappropriate. What do you think of hell? You think you're going there because you got blood on your hands? If you thought it was bad for Pam Bondi, I think that was one of the most inappropriate, if not the most, that I've ever heard a member of Congress say to the sitting ICE director, while his men and women see an 8,000% increase of death threats against him. But today also, as I mentioned, Pam Bondi was there, and Jim Jordan, of course, on the committee. I love Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan started talking with Pam Bondi about Don Lemon, and Jim Jordan brought up that he does not think Don Lemon, who, remember, was inside that church when those protesters were storming the church, and remember all the details surrounding it, that was just horrible. The storming of the church was not free speech. The storming of the church was disrupting a church service. And I hope that everybody tied to it gets the book thrown at them. But here is Jim Jordan talking about Don Lemon and what he says his role was or wasn't in that case.
But that doesn't give you a right to go into the Capitol and disrupt Congress. Something these guys talk about every day. You can't do that. So when Don Lemon said that he was exercising his First Amendment free press rights, freedom of the press rights, that's not really accurate because he was trampling on other individuals' rights. Is that true?
Chairman, we will always protect our churches and the freedom of religion. And yes, that's accurate.
First right mentioned under the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom to practice your faith the way you think the good Lord wants you to, right?
That's right, under the federal government.
And isn't it true that Mr. Lemon met at a shopping center with the rioters who entered City's church in St. Paul, met with them prior to marching to the church?
He did meet, and this is a pending case right now, so I will only stick to what is in the four corners of the unsealed indictment, if I could, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm
There's a lot more that will come out. But under the four corners of the indictment, yes, he did. They had an operation called Operation Pull-Up. They said they were gearing for a resistance. They met in a parking lot, and they caravanned to a church on a Sunday morning when people were worshiping together.
And Mr. Lemon said that he live streamed before entering the church with the rioters. Didn't he say we're going to head to the operation? Didn't he say this he said this on camera, is that right?
Yes, Chairman,
yeah.
And more.
That he was in Minnesota and that, as you said, they were gearing up for an operation. So you can't do that. This is why this is, I think, so important that this guy be held accountable, and I think why you guys have charged him and indicted him. Moving to the second subject here.
Wow, that was a lot in the first subject. And you just heard what he said, that we're moving into an operation. That's an interesting point. Some of the language, and it sounds like Pam Bondi says that there's a lot more information as they are pursuing those charges against Don Lemon. And clearly he's fighting them. I mean, he said it's First Amendment. He did nothing wrong. That's going to be a very interesting case. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Philadelphia on line 4. Go ahead, Robert.
Hi, Rita. As always, it's good to talk to you. If you'll just allow me 20 seconds, the left wing with their selective outrage is making me nuts. They're complaining about ICE committing crimes against people, and that's absurd. But they say nothing about the 400,000 plus American citizens that were the victims of crime because of illegal immigrants. I hear these people saying ICE is disappearing people, which is absurd. We know where they are. We know where they're going. We're keeping a lot better track of them going out than Biden did when he was bringing them in. But you know who has been disappeared, Rita? 300,000 plus minor children coming under the border because of Biden. 400,000 plus Americans who died from fentanyl because of Biden's policies. And while we're trying to fix this monstrosity that the Democrats created, they're fighting us on the streets at every level, and it's just sickening me to no end. I realize freedom of speech, but I really hope that the American people are waking up and pay attention and get out and vote in the midterms.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there.
And Robert, hold on one sec, because you know what, you brought up some great points, because you're right. Where were they when it was so clear of all these, especially you brought up the 300,000 young kids there at the end. I never heard them complaining about the 300,000 that went missing. I mean, that we know of. It could be obviously a lot more. Those are the ones we know of. They didn't care. And you know what's interesting? I did a podcast. It'll go up later this week. I always do the Protecting America podcast. Had a very interesting discussion. It's going to go up later this week with Paul Perez. He is head of the National Border Patrol Council. That's the big Border Patrol union. And he brought up a great point, Robert, because he said to me, you know, I asked him about some of this rhetoric that he's seeing now and just how tough it is on these agents. And his point was they loved us. They, Joe Biden, believe me, thought, Border Patrol was the greatest thing because he wanted more of us. He wanted us to be babysitters under him. Remember, he didn't want them to do their job. To block the border and do those things. He wanted them to watch people more people in these pens and the processing centers, move them through as many as you can move through. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And he said in the minute, of course, that it doesn't work to their advantage, now they're the worst people in the world. But that to me just shows the utter disgusting politics that they would actually put our law enforcement in danger. As they are, I think, with this rhetoric. I think it's so inflammatory, and turn a blind eye to the kids and to the American citizens. It's like they're putting American citizens behind illegals. There's a story I was just looking at, Robert, tonight of a guy who was responsible for selling a lot of meth And apparently ICE was tracking down this individual. We'll get more details. It's just new in the process, but the ICE was tracking down this guy responsible for bringing in tons of meth, a lot of meth. Not physically tons, I'm being metaphoric, but obviously a lot of meth. And when ICE went to go arrest him, all these people started blocking them and blowing whistles and trying to get in the way of the guy is dealing with meth, an enormous amount of methamphetamine. And think about how dangerous that is on the streets of America. And yet these people are blowing whistles and blocking agents. It is like the world is turned upside down, Robert, and good people need to stand together. And it's disgusting what they will do, I believe, for politics, because it's putting Americans in danger. Just like you said, all those hundreds of thousands of cases. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the missing kids. They just want you to think it's like secret police snatching people off the streets, which is just preposterous. Robert, thank you so much. It's always great to hear from you, my friend. 1-800-848-9222. And everybody will continue after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Payne Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, speaking of saying to you, this is wild. During a hearing, as we've been talking about all these congressional hearings today, Senator Hawley asked a witness, how much money in this dark money do you believe is flowing to funding the Minnesota protests or riots, whatever you want to call them, clearly anarchy and insurrection? And the witness said, well, about 14 groups. And he estimated that due to sort of the latest 990 tax disclosures, over $60 million was coming from at least 14 different groups. A number of them, some of them known, this Neville Roy Singham, that's that American who's living over there in China, the Tides Foundation. It says also the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Funding Network. But this is sort of a massive train of money coming from NGOs that have billions of dollars that are being apparently spent to coordinate all of these different protest activities, with just at least $60 million that he found tied to Minnesota. I mean, that's a really, really extraordinary amount. So who else is funding this? And what are we doing to crack down on these people that seem to be funding groups that are undermining America at every turn?
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
Rita Cosby is on.
And there are still so many leads that they are following in the Nancy Guthrie case. Apparently, most focus right now, obviously, there's the reports that 2 gloves have been found, a pair of gloves. That could be a big deal. Also, in that video, that surveillance video, which I believe there's a lot more of, that we only saw a snippet of it. And you would imagine they'd have others from other parts of the house. inside, maybe another camera outside. What about those rooftop cams? But they're certainly trying to track down the attackers. His mask. What about the gloves? Could this be the tie? Also, the backpack is kind of distinguishable. Also, the sweatshirt that he's wearing is kind of distinguishable. Did he buy it all one day? Maybe you put it through a filter and you determine who bought that nearby in one day. Who is buying a ski mask, especially if they believe the person's from the area? I bet not that many ski masks were sold in Tucson in the last few weeks. How long was this person planning it? We don't know. But we do know that since that video came out, there's been a huge amount of leads. Earlier today on Katz and Cosby, John Katz and I talked with James Galliano, former FBI special agent, supervisory special agent, and this is what he said. He is there in Tucson.
Rita, you know this in investigations, there are just a ton of leads that are being run now. There were 10,000 by the first thing this morning just from the video that was released yesterday itself. So in this instance, no, this does not mean the investigation is stonewalled. This does mean that in this particular instance, the evidence did not lead to making an arrest or to considering somebody a suspect.
And here is criminal defense attorney Josh Ritter talking about what law enforcement is doing right now.
Investigators' primary concern is the integrity of the investigation. So they will do whatever they feel serves that purpose best. If that includes sharing information with the public, sure. And we're seeing that here. They're essentially starting to crowdsource this case. If that includes sharing information with the family members, they'll do that as well. But like I said, they're always going to serve the integrity of the investigation, and that does sometimes and oftentimes does mean that they're not going to entirely share information with us. I think what we're seeing here, though, is definitely, and you've all pointed this out, is definitely a pivot in the way that they are approaching the investigation, and Savannah's own words, I think, indicate that as well, that there is all indications that they not only are not addressing the ransomers, not even talking about the ransom, may not even be considering it illegitimate anymore. So we might be back to square one, and that they're just working the pavement, trying to follow leads and do, detective work with the evidence that they have on scene.
And you think about how valuable, I think that is a bombshell. Again, that's surveillance footage. You think about by putting it out and asking the public to help, there's some great things because you could solve the case. But it means you get flooded with all these different tips, as you heard James Galliano talking about. But often it's the needle in a haystack, and somebody says, oh, I know that person, or I saw that person. I thought about today, the Luigi Mangione case. Of course, the guy who has been charged, tied to the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, shooting him, as it looks like on that videotape, they're cold blood. Right? And then remember, he was hanging out at the McDonald's in Pennsylvania. And somebody in McDonald's said, God, that looks like the guy with the bushy eyebrows, even though you couldn't see a lot of him, remember, in the surveillance footage, but you could tell it was a guy with bushy eyebrows. Then a customer at the McDonald's said, that looks like the guy, went over and told, I think, the manager or a worker, at least there at the McDonald's, who then called 911. So that was a big help. Also think about the Tyler Robinson case. That's the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. All of that video that came out where you saw him walking up the stairs. You saw him walking in the neighborhood, the individual. The parents then said, wow, that looks like my son. And they turned their son in. So there's a lot of power to when these footage and images and pictures come out. And that is a very powerful tool that should not be forgotten. Meantime, speaking of forgotten, well, it seems like the media forgets that their job is to be fair to everybody and to pursue the truth and do really what's best for America. I want to play this exchange. This is Katie Couric, who was talking to Rand Paul, and listen to just like, there was nothing good, it seems, that ICE could do or that law enforcement could do. Listen to this exchange with Katie Couric and Rand Paul going back out. Rand Paul said X amount of these people are horrible, criminal, violent individuals that are being taken off the street. Some of them the worst of the worst of the worst. And yet that wasn't good enough for Katie Couric. Listen to this.
Less than 14% of nearly 400,000 immigrants arrested by ICE in President Trump's first year back in the White House had charges or convictions for violent criminal offenses, according to an internal Department of Homeland Security document obtained by CBS News. So isn't all this talk about ridding the country of violent criminals a massive overstatement? If less than 14%, again, of the 400,000 immigrants being arrested are had charges or convictions for violent criminal offenses?
Well, I think the facts make a difference, and so that's one of the questions we will ask. And so when you come to Minneapolis, if they have a policy that says, oh, we're not going to turn over from our jails nonviolent prisoners, people who are, I don't know why you're in prison if you're nonviolent, but maybe you have a drug crime that's a nonviolent.
I think there are plenty of nonviolent people in prisons.
But the thing is that's not their policy. Their policy is we will turn no one over. So you can be, you beat somebody half to death, you get an assault charge, and you're in jail for a couple years, and somehow you're getting out on parole, and you're not going to be turned over and you're illegal. I've got a problem with that, and so do probably most independents and Democrats. But that's what we have to ascertain. And the thing is that's not the policy of Mayor Fry. He did not come forward and say, we're not going to turn over nonviolent prisoners. He just simply said, we're not going to cooperate at all. And if you do cooperate, and this is Ellison's edict to them, it's actually against the law for you to cooperate. So if you happen to have a Republican county and a Republican judge who wants to turn over people in jail once their term has expired to be deported, they've actually made that illegal. And so we should have a debate in our country whether that's advisable. And I think most people are in the middle. I think most people actually hate what the use of force that they saw with Alexander Preddy. But I think if you ask them, if a guy's committed rape and he's in prison and he's going to get out, do you want him deported? I think people would say, hell yes, he ought to be deported. But
having said that, though, what about the 14%? Such a low percentage of 400,000 people.
If your daughter gets raped by the guy that gets back out and he's one of the 14%, I don't think you're going to quibble about whether it's 14 or 64. What I'm saying is, if you're not going to,
who are not guilty,
if you're not going to turn over anybody, then that's 0%. I don't think the percentage, it makes a halfway argument to how much effort should we have. But if Minnesota's not going to turn over anybody, the whole argument, whether it's 14 or 86, doesn't mean anything. So if they're not turning over anybody, then inevitably there are many emotional cases. You know, the Lake and Riley case of a guy that had been arrested, should have been deported. He was a thug. He was arrested multiple times up in New York. The government paid to send this thug to look for a job in Atlanta. It was almost like, we'll give you a bus ticket so your crime committing person we'll send you to some other state. But to Lake and Riley's family, it was a big deal, and it is a big deal to people who care about what happened to her, that if that person had been deported. Now, you might tell me that person's an anomaly. He's only 1 in 100. But Lake and Riley's family, I don't care if it's 1 in 100. The 1 in 100 people who are violent, if that's a number, or if it's 14 in 100, we want them deported. And look, you're looking at someone who's moderate on this issue. I'm not. I don't appreciate what they're doing. I don't like the crowd control. But I do want violent people who are in prison detained and given over to ICE. And if Minnesota's not doing that, they're part of the problem.
I should point out, Senator Paul, that Lake and Riley's father has cautioned lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to refrain from using her death as a political wedge.
No matter what he said, and you'll even hear it, he's not even happy with some of the tactics by ICE. But I thought his comments were very compelling, and still Katie Couric would have none of it. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Fran in Massapequa, line 4. Go ahead, Fran.
Hello, young lady. You're doing a wonderful job like you always do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran, very much. Thank you. What do you want to talk about? What's on your mind?
Did she say 400,000 criminals? So at 10% of that is how many people?
Right.
Is
And it's actually
40,000 or
14.
4,000?
It's actually 14% is what
No, I
she's
know that, but
claiming.
Is that 40,000? Is
Yeah.
that 40,000 people?
Yeah, violent. By the way, violent. Think about the damage that 100 violent criminals can do, right? And you're right. I mean, I wish he actually went back at her with that number. Like, you're going to quibble with me that 60,000 people X have done it. I mean that really it is. Think about how extraordinary, and these are violent. Like, that doesn't include a lot of drug crimes. It doesn't include a lot of, quote, non-violent. We're talking murderers, rapists, pedophiles. I wonder if Katie Couric considers those violent, right, Fran?
Absolutely. And I thought she was done. I didn't know whether she must have a podcast or something. I guess everybody does.
But you know what? It's typical,
is,
Fran. It's typical of what we're hearing, and much worse even on Capitol Hill, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, first of all, I'm so upset because the Democrats are better at lying than the Republicans are at telling the truth, and that's reality. You look at today. I mean, they sat up there and they absolutely abused a woman in every way you could.
Yeah, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General.
Verbally, yes. Now, whether you agree with her or not, if the Republicans did that to a Democratic woman who deserved it, Pam Bondi that doesn't deserve it, who deserves it, like Crockett or one of them other, Pocahontas, one of them, they would be asking for the person's head. And the bottom line is this: we can't win this war. We can keep up with them, but we can't. I mean, you look at the midterms. Affordability. Look what this president is doing. When you don't have the media, it's everything.
It is, but remember, Fran. Here's
say something real quick.
Yeah, but I want to give you a voice. I'll let you go, but here's a voice of inspiration, Fran. Remember, he's had the media against him from day one, and yet he also is back in the White House. So there are anomalies. Go ahead.
He's unbelievable. He's got his people in his own party against him. The guy's unbelievable what he's doing. But this is what I'm going to say because about the media. I live in a neighborhood where they have a letter every month. Every 2 months, they send out a letter to all the neighbors. If they put in that letter, Rita, that I was molesting a child and I got caught and I'm a bad guy, all my neighbors, now there's going to be some neighbors that'll know it's not true. I'm exonerated. It's a lie. But there's going to be neighbors that think that is true. When you put lie after lie after lie after lie out there, some people are going to think it's true. And that's what it is. Hey, do you know how many times they lied today? And they just threw human life to the side like it was nothing. And Rita, it's so bad.
It is. By the way,
Fran, the country.
I agree with you. So, Fran, here's the thing, and I hear what you're saying because it's like if they repeated it enough, and to the point where they're really villainizing ICE. As you talked about the hearing, I mean, boy, are they like we're Gestapo, Nazis, telling Todd Lyons, the acting ICE director, he's going to go to hell. I mean, just really horrible, absolute. And that puts their lives in danger. These brave men and women who are trying to protect us and trying to get the bad folks off the streets, it puts them in danger. Here's what I want to hear from you, Fran, and your thoughts. I think it's clear, and President Trump, he's the best communicator out there. But he brought up a good point, and I think it hits a little bit of what you're saying. He said, you know what, we have a great, great track record, but we need better PR. And I think a lot of it is also his frustration with the media. I mean, he doesn't mind sparring with them, but I'm sure it gets frustrating when he looks at the numbers and the results, and he knows also where the American media is. I mean, even on ICE, the American public definitely wants bad folks off the streets. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question. Absolutely. So do you agree with them that that a lot of this is better PR is needed?
I agree 100%. And that's why I'm trying to tell you the media is constantly against them. And if you can give me 30 seconds, and I hate to bring this up, but if you look at the Nazis, what they did, I was saying to myself a few years ago, I got to look at this. How did they kill all these Jews? It's unbelievable. And what they did was they took over the media and they said, the Jews are bad, and they badmouth them and badmouth them and badmouth them. And when this started, when it finally started happening, they rounding them up and killing them. The people, the Germans or whoever, they were like, oh, they're bad people. And the media is so dangerous, and it can twist minds just like the education system. And that's where all these 20 to 30-year-olds right now are wreaking havoc. I love you. You are a warrior. John Catsimatidis is a wonderful, wonderful person.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I mean, I listen to you, and it brings me back to sanity.
Thank
because
you,
they
friend.
lie. Hakeem Jeffries lies every time he opens his mouth. And I'm no angel, Rita, but people like you are. And it's so sad how these Democrats act. And it's just sad. The president is doing incredible, phenomenal things for black, white, Spanish, red, yellow, for everybody.
Well, that's why, Fran, listen, we got to all be together. I'm with you. We got to all be together. We're one America. And if something is good for America, we need to speak out for it under every shape and form, 1,000%. And do what's right for the country and applaud people that are doing good things. And the president has done extraordinary things. Fran, thank you very much. And thank you for the sweet words. And now everybody support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Washington, D.C., where House Budget Chairman Jody Arrington of Texas spoke on the House floor recently to honor West Texas hero and World War II veteran J.L. Stevens of Big Spring, Texas, who recently celebrated his 100th birthday. By the way, this veteran in 1943, at just 17 years old, enlisted in the U.S. Navy, serving as a gunner's mate aboard the USS Hambleton, where he directly engaged the enemy on D-Day while supporting the Allied invasion of Normandy. And despite suffering combat injuries, he continued his service and concluded in 1945 in the Pacific Theater, where, get this, he personally witnessed the signing of the Japanese Instrument of Surrender in Tokyo Harbor, bringing World War II, of course, to its official end. Wow. Watching history unfold before his eyes. And, of course, we love The Greatest Generation and their families here on The Rita Cosby Show. Everybody support America's military and first responder heroes. Donate just $11 a month to the absolutely incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out. They are the best at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to your calls, guys. Let's go to Rob in Long Island on line 4. Your thoughts, Rob?
Hi, Rita. Of all the video I'm watching of this kidnapping and seeing the FBI agents walking around, I'm sitting there watching TV and I'm looking at my dog, and it just hit me. If I were them, I would take every bloodhound you could find in Arizona, bring them into Nancy's closet, let them smell their clothes, and then turn them loose. I mean, is it not just me, but have you noticed you haven't seen one bloodhound, one dog roaming around there, right?
Although, you know what I have seen? I think it's German Shepherds out there. In fact, the other day there was a shed that was by the sister's house, Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister, and I did see a couple dogs out there. They weren't bloodhounds, but I think there were German Shepherds out there, and they've been trying to trace the scent. So they have had a lot of dogs.
Oh, okay.
But your point's a good one, Rob, because you're right. I think any dog, any of the bloodhounds, as many as possible, because it stood out to me because I thought, God, I hadn't seen them in a while. So you're right. They should have more. And I still think that there's a lot more footage out there. There's a lot more forensics. I hope Nancy Guthrie comes home soon, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?